Why rockets? Why choose the one field where failure is guaranteed? Costs are extreme and patience is non-existent. For Musk, the answer was never glory, it was math. Space was expensive because it was treated as unreachable, locked behind governments' massive budgets and decades of rigid thinking. Rockets were built to be used once, then discarded. Waste was normalized. Inefficiency was accepted. Musk refused to accept that. His goal was simple, almost offensive to experts: lower the cost, increase access, and make space possible, not mythical. But the aerospace world was not welcoming. It was closed, defensive, skeptical. Veteran engineers smiled politely. Commentators shook their heads. A software billionaire playing with rockets sounded like a joke. To them, this wasn't bold. It was naive. The experts weren't just doubtful, they were certain he would fail. SpaceX didn't begin with polished facilities or unlimited resources. It began with a small team, tight budgets, and a clock that never stopped ticking. This wasn't NASA. There were no decades of infrastructure, no safety nets, no room to hide mistakes. SpaceX was a startup stepping into an industry designed to crush startups. Every engineer wore multiple roles. Every decision mattered. Every delay burned money that could not be replaced. Time was the enemy. Pressure was constant. In this environment, learning was brutal. You didn't fail quietly. You failed publicly at the speed of fire. A single miscalculation could erase months of work. A single oversight could end a mission before it ever began. There was no luxury of experimentation, only survival through precision. Because in space, mistakes don't cost money. They cost missions. The countdown begins. Numbers fall. Engines ignite. For a brief moment, hope rises with the rocket. Then something goes wrong. Control is lost. The trajectory shifts. And in seconds, the sky explodes. Fire, debris, silence. The first SpaceX launch ends not with orbit, but with destruction. There is no privacy in this failure, no closed room to recover in. The cameras were rolling. The world was watching. Years of work vanish in a single flash. Careers, money, and beliefs scatter with the wreckage. This isn't a quiet setback, it's a public collapse. For critics, it's proof. For skeptics, confirmation. For SpaceX, a brutal awakening. The dream doesn't slowly disappear. It doesn't retreat or pause. It detonates loud, visible, undeniable. And everyone is waiting to see if this is where the story ends. They try again. New calculations, adjusted systems, lessons pulled from the wreckage. The second launch lifts off, and for a moment it feels different, more stable, more controlled. Then it fails. Another explosion, another rocket lost. Another reminder that space offers no mercy. Inside SpaceX, confidence begins to crack. Engineers exchange silent looks. The unspoken question hangs in the air. Are we learning, or are we burning everything we have? Money is disappearing. Time is running out. Belief is no longer automatic. Outside the company, the narrative hardens. This wasn't bad luck. This was inevitability. 2 failures, 2 strikes. In most industries, this is where you pivot, you change direction. You protect what's left. But in space, there is no pivot. 2 strikes don't warn you, they end you. The third attempt feels different. Not because the technology is perfect, but because everything else is gone. Money is nearly exhausted. Reputation is hanging by a thread. Inside and outside the company, the same question echoes quietly. Is this the end? This is no longer about engineering challenges or bold ideas. It's about whether SpaceX will still exist tomorrow. A third failure would not be a setback. It would be a verdict. Employees know it, partners sense it, and Elon Musk feels it more than anyone. History is watching, but not with patience, only with judgment. Will this be remembered as a reckless experiment by a billionaire who didn't know when to stop, or as the painful beginning of something that changed everything? The pressure is suffocating. Every decision carries weight. Every calculation feels final. There is no optimism left to hide behind. No inspirational speeches that can soften the reality. This launch will decide the story. Not whether SpaceX reaches orbit, not whether rockets work, but whether the company survives at all. Now, it's not about rockets, it's about survival. By this point, there is almost nothing left to spend. The numbers no longer lie. Accounts are thin, time has run out. Inside SpaceX, the atmosphere changes. This is no longer a workplace, it's a waiting room. A meeting is called. No speeches, no motivation posters, just faces marked by exhaustion and a truth everyone already knows. There will be one more launch, not because it is safe, not because it is smart, but because there is no other move left. This is the last window, the final alignment of resources, people, and belief. If they don't try, the company dies quietly. If they do and fail, it dies publicly. The decision is made. Every system is checked again, every assumption questioned, every risk accepted. There is no confidence in the room, only resolve. This is not ambition anymore, it's instinct. A final bet placed not on certainty, but on possibility. One last launch. If this fails, SpaceX ends. The countdown begins again, but this time it feels endless. Seconds stretch. Heartbeats grow louder than the engines themselves. In the control room, no one speaks. There is nothing left to say. This silence is different. It isn't calm, it's heavy. Every person in the room understands what this moment means, not just for the mission, but for their future. Monitors glow softly. Hands hover over consoles. Breaths are held without anyone noticing. This isn't excitement, it's confrontation. A confrontation with everything that has led here, every risk taken, every failure endured, every dollar spent. Outside, the rocket waits, perfectly still, indifferent to the fear surrounding it. The final seconds arrive. There is no room for hope now, only reality. Either the rocket rises and the company lives, or it fails and everything ends. This is not strategy. This is not optimism. This is commitment with nothing held back. This is what all in looks like. Silence before impact. The rocket lifts, and this time it doesn't hesitate. Engines burn clean. The trajectory holds. Seconds pass without alarms, then a minute, then another. In the control room, disbelief replaces fear. No one celebrates yet. They've learned not to. The rocket keeps climbing. Telemetry stays green. Systems respond. The numbers finally make sense. Orbit is achieved. In that instant, everything changes. What was once a company on the edge of bankruptcy is suddenly alive again. What felt like the end becomes an opening. Careers are saved. Dreams are restored. A future once fading snaps back into focus. This wasn't just a successful launch. It was a reversal of fate. From the brink of collapse to the doorway of survival, all in a matter of minutes. Contracts follow. Trust returns. Time is bought. Not because SpaceX proved perfection, but because it proved persistence. He didn't just launch a rocket. He launched a second chance. Success brings relief, but not comfort. The launch opens doors that were previously sealed shut. Agencies return calls. Contracts reappear on the table. Investors look again, not with enthusiasm, but with curiosity. SpaceX is no longer dismissed as a reckless experiment. It is now something more dangerous to ignore. Funding arrives, confidence follows, time is extended. But inside the company, no one believes the battle is over. One successful launch does not erase the past. It does not guarantee the future. It only proves that survival is possible. In space, reputation is not built on a single victory. It is built on repetition, on consistency under pressure. Every new mission must confirm the last. Every launch must justify continued belief. Failure is still waiting, watching, patient. This moment is not triumph. It is permission to continue. SpaceX has escaped collapse, but it has not yet earned stability. Because in space, winning once means nothing. You must repeat the impossible. Survival gives SpaceX permission to dream again, but the dream is no longer small. Launching rockets is no longer enough. If space is ever going to be accessible, rockets cannot be treated as disposable. They can't be built, launched once, and thrown away like scrap metal. That logic keeps space rare, expensive, exclusive. So Musk pushes the team toward a goal that sounds unreasonable even by aerospace standards: bring the rocket back. The idea is met with skepticism everywhere. Rockets fall from space at extreme speeds. They experience violent heat pressure and stress. The common assumption is simple: if a rocket comes back down, it will break. And yet Musk asks a different question. What if it didn't? What if rockets could land vertically? What if they could be reused again and again? What if spaceflight followed the same logic as aviation? To many experts, this is fantasy, a dangerous distraction from more realistic goals. But for SpaceX, this isn't ambition, it's necessity. Because without reusability, the future stays out of reach. What if rockets didn't die after one flight? The pursuit of reusability does not begin with elegance. It begins with destruction. SpaceX attempts landing after landing, and most of them fail. Rockets miss the target. They tip over. They strike the platform and explode in towering fireballs. Some never make it that far, breaking apart before reaching the ground. Others vanish into the ocean, swallowed without ceremony. To the outside world, it looks like chaos, like proof that the idea is flawed, like expensive arrogance colliding with reality. But inside SpaceX, these failures are not treated as disasters. They are treated as data. Every crash is analyzed frame by frame. Every explosion reveals a weakness, structural, mechanical, or computational. Every failure closes the gap between theory and control. This is learning the hard way, not in simulations, not on paper, but in fire. There is no shortcut through this phase, no graceful path forward, only repetition, adjustment, and the willingness to break things until they stop breaking. Because at SpaceX, progress is not measured by avoiding explosions. It is measured by what survives them. Every explosion was a lesson written in fire. As the explosions continue, the world begins to choose sides. To some, Elon Musk is a visionary, someone willing to endure public failure in pursuit of progress. They see courage where others see chaos. They believe innovation has always looked like madness in its early stages. To others, he is something else entirely: a reckless billionaire, a man burning money for attention, proof that confidence is not the same as wisdom. Every failed landing becomes a headline. Every fireball becomes a punchline. The same images inspire admiration and ridicule at the same time. And that contradiction reveals an uncomfortable truth: the future is never allowed to look messy. People celebrate breakthroughs, but only after the cost has been paid. They praise innovation once it is clean, safe, and profitable. But in real time, progress is loud. It explodes. It fails in public. The world loves innovation until they see what it costs. And SpaceX is paying that cost in full, one failure at a time. Then after years of trial and fire, the moment finally arrives. A Falcon 9 rocket descends from the sky, slow, controlled, deliberate. Its engines fire in short bursts, correcting its path with impossible precision. The drone ship waits below, small against the ocean. Wind pushes, waves move. Everything that can go wrong still might. And then it happens. The rocket touches down, not sideways, not broken, not in flames, upright. For a moment there is disbelief, then silence, then realization. This is not a technical success. It is a historical one. In that instant, years of doubt collapse. Decades of assumptions shatter. Reusable rockets are no longer a theory. They are reality. The economics of space shift immediately. Launch costs fall. Access expands. What was once rare becomes repeatable. Critics fall quiet not because they were convinced, but because the impossible has already landed. Upright. The impossible landed upright. That landing wasn't about spectacle, it was about price. For decades, space had been treated like a museum, rare, protected, and accessible only to a select few. Every launch destroyed its own vehicle, locking high costs into every mission. Reusability changed that equation. When a rocket can fly again, the cost of reaching orbit collapses. Launches become routine, schedules become predictable, Ambitions grow larger. Space stops being a museum. It becomes a highway. Satellites are deployed faster. Scientific missions multiply. Commercial access expands beyond governments and superpowers. This shift doesn't happen gradually. It happens structurally. The rules change. Entire business models are rewritten. New industries become possible. Old assumptions lose their power. This wasn't a stunt. It wasn't a publicity moment. It was a permanent change in how humanity reaches space. A new economic law written not in theory but proven in steel, fuel, and flame. With reusability proven, SpaceX moves beyond survival. The company is no longer asking whether it belongs in space. It is shaping how space is used. Missions to the International Space Station become routine. Cargo and crews are delivered with growing confidence. Launches increase in frequency, no longer spaced years apart, but weeks, sometimes days. What once felt experimental now feels operational. Commercial customers arrive, governments adapt, the pace accelerates. SpaceX begins to set the rhythm of modern spaceflight. This is no longer a story of barely staying alive. It is a story of direction. Every successful mission compounds the last. Trust builds. Capability expands. Survival turns into momentum, and momentum changes perception. What was once dismissed as reckless becomes the standard others must follow. Competitors rush to imitate what they once mocked. The narrative shifts quietly but completely. SpaceX is no longer reacting to the future. It is pulling the future forward. What started as survival became momentum. Looking back, the original question returns. Why not stop? Why not retire when the victory was already secured? For Elon Musk, wealth was never the destination. It was leverage. Money wasn't meant to protect comfort. It was meant to accelerate change. Musk believed that waiting for the future was the real risk. That stagnation, moving too slowly while dangers grew, was far more threatening than failure. He wasn't trying to be rich. He was trying to compress time, to pull tomorrow closer, to force progress forward before civilization drifted into complacency. But this raises a deeper question. Is it right for one person to take such risks on behalf of everyone else? To reshape industries, economies, and futures through relentless pressure? Is the cost personal, financial, human worth the promise? Musk seems to have answered that question for himself. Some people fear losing what they have. Others fear never changing at all. He did not fear failure. He feared stagnation. Mars is not a symbol for Elon Musk. It is a destination. Not because it is easy, not because it is near, but because it represents the next threshold. To Musk, humanity on a single planet is fragile. One catastrophe, natural or man-made, could end everything. A single point of failure for an entire species. Mars changes that equation. A second world means a second chance. A backup not for one nation but for civilization itself. This is not about flags or glory. It is about survival. Critics call it unrealistic, a billionaire's fantasy, a gamble with no guaranteed return. And they may be right, because Mars is not safe. It is hostile, distant, unforgiving. But so was every new frontier humanity ever crossed. The question is not whether Mars is dangerous. The question is whether staying still is safer. For Musk, Earth was never the finish line. It was the starting point. And with SpaceX, humanity turns the page from asking if we can leave Earth to asking when. The story of SpaceX is not a story of comfort. It is the story of choosing uncertainty when safety was available, of burning every layer of protection in exchange for a chance at the future. Nothing about this journey was guaranteed. Every step forward required accepting the possibility of collapse. Explosions were not accidents to be erased. They were prices paid in public lessons learned in real time. Progress did not arrive because the path was smooth. It arrived because failure was endured again and again without retreat. SpaceX did not succeed by avoiding risk. It succeeded by standing inside it long enough to understand it. This is the uncomfortable truth behind advancement. The future is not built by those who never fail. It is built by those willing to fail repeatedly without losing direction. by those who can afford to absorb loss, not financially, but emotionally. Because innovation does not reward caution. It rewards endurance. The future is built by those who can afford to fail emotionally. If this story made you see SpaceX and Elon Musk in a deeper way, take a second to support the channel. Hit like so this documentary can reach more people who love real stories of risk, failure, and breakthrough. And if you want more long-form cinematic explanations like this, subscribe, because we're building a library of stories that connect technology, history, and the future. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think SpaceX was genius or reckless courage pushed to the edge? Leave your answer in the comments. I read them, and I use your ideas to shape the next episodes. And don't forget to share this video with someone who believes the future is built, not imagined. Because in the next chapter, we're going even deeper, not into the sky, but onto the ground. Tesla versus SpaceX, where did the real battle happen? And which one truly changed the world first? Because the next chapter isn't about rockets, it's about rewriting the world on the ground.